Episode 199. Poking. Jake gritted his teeth, changed, and lifted Serena up with his arms silently. She looked at him, feeling guilty. Grabbing his collar, she looked like a naughty child getting caught, whispering, "I could try to walk on my own."
"Quiet."
Jake was in a fret. Taking her downstairs, he only grabbed his car key and wallet before walking to his car. She stopped talking. She had heard that an unsatisfied guy was the most terrifying creature in the world. He put her on the co-pilot seat carefully, and then sat in the driver's seat. Taking out a pack of cigarettes from the glove compartment, he lit one up and took a deep puff before he started the car. Serena felt better already. Looking at the city going back outside the window, she felt a bit emotional. She had relived this life for a while now. It felt like a dream. After a long while, she glanced at Jake. He still had the cigarette between his lips. Noticing her glance, he looked back at her and took the cigarette down to expel the smoke slowly. On this winter night, his face was covered in white smoke, making his chiseled features look even colder. It was a silent ride. When they reached the hospital closest to the West End neighborhood, it was about 20 minutes later. The cold wind had drowned most of his desire. He wanted to carry her out of the car, but Serena thought it was too embarrassing and insisted on walking. Jake gave up and checked her in with a gynecologist. After a series of tests, the doctor looked at her weirdly.
"When did you start feeling uncomfortable?"
Serena blushed and told the truth. The doctor pushed his glasses back on his nose bridge.
"When did you have your last period?"
Over 20 days ago."
"Is it usually on time?"
"Yes. It's either one day early or one day late."
"Okay."
The doctor then asked a nurse for something that Serena did not understand. The nurse quickly left. When she came back, she handed a box over to Serena.
"Go have a test."
Seeing the name on the box, she was dazed. Pregnancy test? She went to the bathroom and used the test as instructed. Seeing the 2 red lines, she was dumbstruck, and then took out the other 2 tests. 2 of the 3 tests showed 2 clear red lines, and the other one showed a faint red line in addition to the solid one. She did not know how she walked out of the bathroom. Seeing Jake from afar, she blinked and called, "Darling?"
"Yes?"
There was tobacco scent on Jake's clothes. He had obviously smoked again. Hearing his response, she let out a yelp and threw herself at him, locking her arms about his neck. "Darling, darling, darling!" His first reaction was to take her into his arms. He looked down and asked in a low voice,
"What is it?"
She held him tight and suddenly released him. Grabbing his hand, she said seriously, "I have something important to tell you." Jake arched an eyebrow and glanced at her hand. She hid the item behind her, pretending to look upset.
"What is it?"
He reached out a hand to catch hers. She dodged and said, "Don't move. Stand still."
"Okay."
He stood still, gazing at her. Serena showed a pregnancy test to him and asked, "You know what this is?"
"An AIDS test?"
Hearing that, Serena's joy immediately disappeared. She threw a punch at him. Jake's cold eyes became gentle as he grabbed her fist. After her attack failed, she kicked at him. This time he did not dodge. With a smile, his face was lit up. He reached out to take her into his arms and took the tests in her hand. The red lines pleased him greatly. His smile deepened. Furious, she hit his chest. How ignorant! He embraced her from behind and looked down at her, whispering,
Right. I had no idea that this was a pregnancy test.
Hearing that, her bad mood went away. She squeezed his face and bristled. You fooled me! He laughed. Holding her hands, he said,
You're the one who tried to prank me first, Mrs. Robinson.
Seeing the rare smile on his face, she chuckled. Did you know it from the start?
I saw the nurse getting the pregnancy test.
That was why. She felt a bit disappointed and gave him a light push. Can't you pretend to be surprised by me?
Why do I need to pretend?
His eyes glittered, as if they could take her in. He couldn't help feeling her belly. Serena laughed happily and removed his hand. Now I must see the doctor.
Right.
Jake watched her going into the room, and his calm eventually cracked. Hitting his thigh, he felt he was about to lose his mind. She was pregnant. She was. He was going to be a father. The sudden surprise made his heart race. He almost wanted to shout out. Under people's gaze, Jake took out his cell phone and went to the stairwell. He immediately dialed his best friend's number. It was past 10 p.m. Jackson Roberts had snuck into the bathroom with a box of newly purchased condoms and some new needles he asked his staff to get from the hospital. He was ready to poke a few holes. He knew it was a low attempt, but he had to try. A sudden noise made him jump. Noticing it was his phone, he relaxed. He always felt so nervous when he was trying to do something bad. After wiping off the lubricant that had leaked from the package, he took out his cell phone from the pocket. Seeing it was Jake, he felt a bit bored. Everything was going so well for this guy recently. He did not want to listen to his voice. Ignored. Jackson looked down and continued to poke. However, Jake called relentlessly. Despite his impatience, Jackson picked up.
Hello? Woohoo! Yes! Jack!
Jackson shuddered. Checking the caller, he doubted whether it was Jake for real.
What's wrong with you?
He bristled and put the damaged condom back into the box.
You scream like you're going to give birth.
Hearing that, Jake couldn't help laughing again. Jake immediately hung up. Whenever this guy laughed, it was either something wonderful or something horrible. Judging from his brainless laugh, it ought to be something good. And Jackson Roberts was sure he did not have any interest in hearing it.